Crypto Kids, welcome back to another live stream. Currently, the price of Bitcoin, specifically Bitcoin, is in a little bit of a free fall. And right now, we're going to go into the price of Bitcoin and talk about the price as we have came down and unbelievably closed the CME gap at $91,960 already. It's done. We've been speaking about that probability over on the Crypto Kids Telegram just about an hour or two ago. And I said, hey, Bitcoin is at 93. We've come down this much, we might as well come down and close the CME gap. You can check the Telegram. I just don't have two monitors, so I can't show it to you, but we spoke about it, and then boom, a few almost minutes later, we came down and closed the CME gap. So currently, I want to show you the outlook if we're still in the short-term bullish, because remember we said short-term, I expect a pump before expecting a larger dump to the downside. I want to cover that. I want to show you if I still believe that to be the case. Is a short-term pump imminent, or is it truly over for Bitcoin and we're just going to continue heading to price lowers? That's going to be the objective of today's live stream. As you're coming in though, make sure to destroy the like button. That would be very much appreciated, and might as well destroy subscribe and destroy the like button. It is currently 12:22 my AM. 12:22 a.m. But I just have to go live. We cannot not talk about the current price action. All right, so when you look at this, it's not a nice picture. I'm not a fan of what's happening here, and I didn't want to jump into a long position, as you remember, because of that monumentous amount of resistance to the upside from the EMA ribbons over on the 1 hourly time frame. Just a lot of resistance. I know we have a bullish divergence here on the 1 hourly, but to me, like, these short-term charts don't matter much. I'm a more macro trader. I like to look at the macro more. So I was reluctant to go ahead and open a long position, even though a bullish divergence was present. I honestly don't like how this looks still. Like this just doesn't look good. It looks like a bearish continuation for me. But I do still believe that we're going to get a bounce towards the upside at some point. It doesn't have to be like right now. And I believe this due to the death cross, right? So you got a death cross. The death crosses mark lows. You tend to mark the low before the death cross actually takes place, which we haven't done so now. Usually death crosses mark lows, but they don't mark lows when you're transitioning from a bull market into a bear market. The only time these death crosses that take place between the 50 and 200 simple moving averages, the only time where they don't mark lows is when you're transitioning from a bull market into a bear market. When do you transition from a bull market into a bear market? Well, historically, that transition happens post-halving year Q4. That's exactly where we are right now. The last time this took place was post-halving year Q4, right around here. We got that death cross on the daily time frame. You're going to have to trust me with that one, because the daily is going to be too many candles to show. This is a small screen I have in front of me. But this is where we got the death cross. Why do I think the bounce will take place regardless? Even if this is a transition into a bear market, I believe that to be the case, as eventually Bitcoin does come up and retest your 200 daily moving average. And that's what happened in the last cycle. And I think last cycle is very much comparable to this cycle. So you can see you fell below, you got the death cross, but Bitcoin over in March of 2022, it took some time, albeit it did take some time. It took roughly from January all the way to March. It took 78 days for this to come to eventuality. It took 78 days. But eventually you did come back up, test the 200 daily moving average, and that led into the bear market. You can go to the cycle beforehand. So the cycle beforehand was obviously the 2017 cycle. In 2017, you get the death cross. It's a little bit different. It's a tad bit different. Let's bring up the Bitcoin USD Bitstamp chart just so we have as much data as we can. There we go. So this is 2017. Look at 2017. It doesn't take that long. It takes much shorter of a time period. But you get the death cross. You get it in March of 2018. and it takes about 40 days for Bitcoin to make it back to the 200 daily moving average before seeing a rejection and then entering into a bear market. I wonder if in the Genesis cycle this was true. I wouldn't be shocked if it was. Yeah, I mean, yeah, similar situation. So you get the death cross right over here. Bitcoin is trading at what, $390, unbelievable. And then approximately 59 days following that death cross, in that transition from bull to bear market, you get a test of the 200 daily moving average, and that leads into the bear market. It's something that has taken place in every cycle. And we know from the video or live stream that I published on the Moon Show channel, just like 3 hours back, we showed one of my favorite analysts on YouTube. His name is Crypto Currently. Let me see if I can bring that graphic up because I thought it was quite interesting. A lot of people, they seem to say, oh, okay, the Bitcoin halving cycles are done. The Bitcoin halving cycles are not relevant anymore. But I want to show you why they are incredibly relevant, and why you've been following the cycles perfectly this cycle, and why I think we're going to continue to do so. So let's go to the video. So right here, this is a very, very cool graphic, and I just realized that Carl posted a video with Chris and Da Vinci, which I need to watch ASAP, and we can maybe do some stream sniping later. But this is a chart that represents from the bottom of a cycle. This is the 2017 cycle. From the bottom of the cycle to reach to the top of the cycle, which was in December of 2017, it took 152 weeks, which translates to 1,064 days. In the cycle after, this is the cycle of, what do you call it? This is the cycle of obviously 2019 all the way into 2021. From the bottom of the cycle to get to the top of the cycle, that was in November of 2021, it also took 152 weeks, which translates to 1,064 days. When you go to this cycle that we're currently, transitioning into a bear market in, you can see that in November of 2022, that was the bottom. To get to the top, that was also 152 weeks, which is 1,064 days. The point that I'm trying to make is that this cycle is very much still respecting the 4-year halving cycles. So with that respect in mind, because we've seen a move back up to the 200 moving average before a total collapse, I would still expect Bitcoin to do this. This is why I've, over on weeks, and I can see if I can, let me check if I can bring up my weeks account. This is why over on weeks, my short positionings are going to begin from around the 99 to 102 range for the moment. However, I will adjust that to the upside or add some more orders towards the 110 mark as I see fit. I need to log in, so give me a moment as I log in. And as I'm logging in, guys and girls, if you can destroy the like button, if you appreciate this content, that would truly, truly mean the world to me. And after, we're going to go into altcoins, and I'm also going to go ahead and stream snipe Carl. Because Carl, I told Carl, hey, aren't you, Da Vinci and Chris, going to be on the same flight home? And he said, yeah. So I said, look, if you're on the same flight home, why don't you upload a video together? And he said, yeah, that's a good idea. And I guess they've done that. I want to stream snipe and see what they've said. The title was a bit sad. They were expecting 75K, which makes total sense. All right, I've logged in. I've basically logged in. Give me 2 more moments. I hope you guys are destroying the like button whilst I am logging in, though. I trust that you are. All right, we're in. Now I just go to derivatives and then share my screen. One second. There we go. Futures. Share screen. Perfect. All right, so this is the 1 minute time frame. Yeah, I'm not interested in the 1 minute. But you can see I've set limit orders to short Bitcoin from here. That is the levels that I'm looking at, but I'm going to shift that most likely to the 107 to 110 or add more orders in that range, as this is where the 200 moving average will likely come towards. So if you want to do the same shorting, then you can go to the first link in the description down below and deploy those short positions as limit shorts. I think Bitcoin will eventually see that move. Historically, it can take many days, like 40 days, 70 days. But I think we're going to see it, and after we see it, we're going to see that eventual drop to the 70s. That's at least what I think will happen in my opinion. Quite interestingly, the CME gap is closed. I can show you the CME gap chart. On the daily, you will notice that on the CME chart, there was a gap right over here at 91,960. That is now officially closed. I usually buy the CME gaps, and I'm known as the CME gap kid over on Twitter, but this specific CME gap I'm actually not going to be buying, unfortunately, due to the transitory phase we're in from bull to bear market. It's just not a gap that I'm personally interested in buying at the moment. Okay, so should we stream snipe Carl? I'm actually quite curious. What did he say? Okay, this is paused. This I can pause also. And if I unmute, I think we'll be able to, yeah, we'll be able to watch it. Let's see what the guy said. Share screen. All system audio. Brave browser. Unmute. Let's play it.
Everything is indeed falling. Let me quickly show you how Bitcoin is right now closing, or actually already closed, the CME gap at 91,000. And I'm going to talk about the exact bottom target and much more. First, let's leave a thumbs up right now. And I have two very beautiful friends and also crypto analysts to help me in this video. So actually, let's start with one of you. Let's start with Da Vinci. Da Vinci, we are falling to the CME gap and maybe lower. Do you think we're gonna bounce from the CME gap now, or do you think we're gonna go lower?
Well, if we do bounce from the CME gap, it'll probably be very little. There won't be much of a bounce. And then it'll just either go sideways for a while and then dump even further. Yeah, things are not looking good. And we might see like a collapse all the way as low as probably 75K for the bottom of this bear market.
Okay, but 75K wouldn't be so crazy as a bear market low compared to other bear markets.
Exactly.
And I agree with you, because we never saw euphoria, we never saw RSI spiking into overbought on the monthly or even the weekly, I think. What do you say about that, Chris?
I agree. I actually think 75 could make sense. That's a 40% retracement from the all-time high, which usually is much lower than expected, but well, we also went up less. On the monthly, we've never been overbought. A bull market usually never ends without us being overbought. The reason behind this dump, actually, I talked about that before, is I think us closing the weekly below the EMA ribbon, which is the 50-week exponential moving average. And what you can see, this is the ribbon, but you can just take the 50-week moving average, which was at 98,000. So the moment we closed below, I think odds turned a little bit against us bulls. And yeah, I personally have my measured move price targeted 82 to 84,000, where also some support from the beginning of the year is coming in terms of VPVR. So before looking at 75, I would target 84.
I'm also looking at the EMA ribbon, because that is a very good indication of bear market and bull market. And like you said, we actually crossed down. We talked about just a week ago, I think. So most of the signs we're seeing now indicate a bear market. Isn't that the case? What do you think?
I would have to say yes, but if there's any bounces, I suggest you short it or sell your Bitcoin if you want to sell a little bit, not a whole lot. There's a chance, of course, at any point in time that the US dollar could collapse, and then you'd be on the wrong side of the trade. So keep that in mind.
Let's start with 3,000 likes, 1,000 for me, 1,000 for Da Vinci, and 1,000 for Chris. And then actually another question then, because I think many people hold altcoins, right? And altcoins never...
Okay, if you want to watch the rest of that video, then you can go and watch the rest on the Moonshow channel. Pretty crazy, right? Pretty crazy to see that Da Vinci said you need to sell your Bitcoin as the price of Bitcoin increases to the upside. Quite crazy that they said that. And then they were going to get into altcoins. Well, I want to share my thoughts on altcoins, okay? So obviously altcoins have been not performing the best, so to say. I think that's the least to say. And the truth is, if we look at the altcoin cycle, if we look at altcoins, if you go to the altcoin chart, this is the total 3. This excludes, well, we might as well include Ethereum. So this is everything apart from Bitcoin. So this is all altcoins, all right? So when you look at this chart, you go from the bottom of the bear market. This was November 2022. From November 2022, you go to the highest point that we've ever reached in the cycle. It was 300%, and it was only 300%. And now, this is altcoins. Now you're at about 190% increase, and that 190% increase is stemming mostly from Ethereum, which is still up like 2.5x from the bottom, which was 1.5. We did long that. And then, Solana, which was at $8 eventually, coming very close to our target of the 120, 115. And then BNB, which was at like $200, and now it's at $900. We took profits perfectly at the 1.3, literally the top, and we longed the breakout. So these are the coins that make up most of that 190% increase from the bottom of the bear market that we're sitting at the moment. But if you look at other altcoins like Cardano, like Dogecoin, like all of these have suffered, and I'm still waiting for these trendline breakouts to long. And I guess that's what your question is, right? Are we going to see those trendline breakouts? Are we going to see the opportunity to go into long positions? And I think, yes, I think it's still due. It's just quantitative easing is going to kick in much, much, much later than anticipated. Quantitative easing will likely begin in about Q2 of next year. So let's say in March or April or May, they introduce quantitative easing. For capital to be printed in the central bank and for that capital to then go from the central bank into risk on assets, that takes about 6 to 7 months. So you're looking at towards the end of next year really to see the movement we want to see in altcoins unless something crazy happens, right? But altcoins are depressing, and I think that Bitcoin dominance is actually going to see a fall to the downsides. It is currently slowly seeing a bit of a fall to the downside. I only think that Bitcoin dominance is going to reduce because of the bearish crossover between the bull and bear market support band and the 54 simple moving average. So we have this bearish cross right over here. But Bitcoin dominance dropping to the downside doesn't mean altcoin season in this particular scenario. What it means is that altcoins will bleed less against relative to their Bitcoin pairs. Like I said, most altcoins, apart from the Ethereum, the BNB, the Solana, most altcoins are already at their bear market lows. So when you go to bear market lows, below bear market lows, there isn't any liquidity anyway. So they can't really fall more. Physically, they can't fall more. It's just how order books work. So that means that Bitcoin could still continue dropping 10, 15, 20%, but altcoins relatively would be bleeding less because they just can't bleed as much as Bitcoin because Bitcoin does have liquidity to the downside, meaning Bitcoin dominance would come down, but that doesn't indicate altcoin season. It just means that altcoins would bleed less against their Bitcoin pairs as they usually do. All right, so I hope that makes sense. I know it's quite frustrating to hear, but I think that's what makes sense. Da Vinci in fear. Yeah, Da Vinci is for sure in fear. Somebody said stocks all-time high, gold all-time high, dollar weakening, and QE coming. Where are people going to park their cash? Crypto. I get it, but until those things happen, obviously it's going to be turbulent. I mean, right now Bitcoin is down to $91,400. We're still continuing the correction. I just want to double check how are the liquidations and how much people have been liquidated in the past few hours. I mean, it's not a nice thing to check, but it is data after all. So let's go to liquidation data. Let's share the screen. So liquidation data is showing that in the past 24 hours, we've been liquidating $450 million of Bitcoin long positions and almost $200 million of Ethereum long positions. XRP has been liquidating mostly short positions, and so has Zcash. When I go to the crypto bubbles, this is what the bubbles look like. So Pump.Fun is down 13%. You're looking at Mantle down 7.9%. You're looking at Filecoin, which is up 6.4%. I mean, some of the weird coins, like the coins that don't do anything these days, like ICP and Filecoin, like they're for some reason up. But most of the market is down. Even Zcash today is down 6.6%. Bitcoin 91,400. We can double check Zcash in the meantime. Let's have a look at what Zcash is doing. So Zcash, it is seeing a bit of a correction, but obviously after such a long increase to the upside, I do suspect a bearish divergence, and I am correct in my suspicion. I'm not a fan of this bearish divergence at all. So all Zcash holders, first of all, Zcash, not going to replace Bitcoin, okay? Huge bearish divergence. I think the end of Zcash is near, and you can clip this, whatever, call me out on it in the future. I don't mind, but Zcash is not just, it's not going to exist forever. I don't believe in fully anonymous transactions. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. Pseudo-anonymous is good enough. And then you can use the Lightning Network to make things cheaper or whatnot. But fully anonymous transactions via ZK rollups and stuff, it's just shady business. It doesn't need to exist. And I was doing a deep dive into Zcash the other day, specifically into its tokenomics. And I did a search on Grok, which is a very powerful tool, and I definitely recommend using it for your research. If we go to Grok, all right, if we go to Grok and I give you the breakdown of the, the Zcash tokenomics, you're going to be quite surprised. So I'm going to type into Grok. So give me a moment as I type into Grok. What is the tokenomics, token distribution, in brackets, distribution of Zcash, ZEC, ticker ZEC. And let's see what it says. All right, so this is supposedly going to be the next Bitcoin, right? That's what people are saying. When you look at the Zcash tokenomic distribution, all right, you have the following. So you have 80% of rewards that secure the network, which is going to the miners. Perfect, that's great. And then you have 20% to the development fund. That I don't like. The 20% that is being given to developers and like that, to me, is just not something that you would see in the next Bitcoin. Ideally, it all has to be in the supply. And I know that Satoshi has like 1 million coins, don't get me wrong, but Satoshi having 1 million coins in one wallet is sort of symbolic of how unhackable Bitcoin is. It's the biggest jackpot in history. You have 1 million Bitcoin. That's equivalent to still like 75 billion, 80, no more, like $90 billion today. So it's a $90 billion jackpot. And the fact that nobody's been able to hack into this wallet is symbolic of how secure Bitcoin is. I think that's why Satoshi, when he created Bitcoin, that's why he left 1 million Bitcoins in that wallet and never touched it again. It was just supposed to be symbolic of how secure the Bitcoin network is. He left the biggest jackpot in human history available right there on the internet. And nobody was able to hack into it to this day, showing how secure Bitcoin is. To me, even though 80% of Zcash is going to, miners, which is good, you shouldn't have 20% going to, like, I don't know, I'm just not comfortable with it. Maybe I'm going to be proven wrong in the future, and it's possible that I am. And I'm not an egoistic person. So if I am proven wrong, I'm going to accept that I'm proven wrong, and maybe Zcash does become the money. But I strongly, strongly doubt it. Whilst we're talking about money, let's talk about Ethereum. So Ethereum, in the previous videos, I said that I would be expecting about 2.8 to 2.7 for Ethereum. But I've also said that in the short term, we should be able to see a bounce. We're just not getting that bounce. The bounce is not bouncing. In the 4-hourly timeframes, we can double check. There is definitely a bullish divergence. I am still going to advocate for a short-term bounce to the upside and then an eventual move towards the downside. I'm looking at the 3.6 level. That's the attractive level for me to maybe start flipping into short positions. For now, all I can do is really observe this price action and see what it leads into. However, in the overall midterm, I would be looking at a 2.8, 2.7 Ethereum. We're quite close to it. So if you wanted to do DCA buys, I think now is not too bad of a time to do so. I think worst case for Ethereum, the level that we would be coming down to is the following, if my trendline tool ends up playing out. So let's see what we have here. Let's go into the weekly time frame maybe and remove all drawings because it's a little bit confusing. Get the trend line Yeah, we've broken that. That's been broken. Never mind. Let's get rid of that. No, joke aside, I think that we have very strong support at 2.4. I think 2.4 is a good level, and then the 2.275 is also good. And then I would say, you know, the 2.1 also. I really wouldn't expect us to break back into the 1.8s, but if we do, I mean, 1.8 would be the low. I don't see us going much lower than 1.8. I would just be adding if we do end up coming any lower at these points, and then praying for Ethereum's recovery. It's just so sad. Ethereum has wrecked all of us, hasn't it? It's absolutely wrecked every single person that was a believer in Ethereum, and it's quite sad that that is the case. It's very, very sad. Somebody says, don't trust fake AI. Grok is not fake. Grok is very powerful, and I would recommend using Grok as a tool. It's pretty good. There was some breaking news. I want to show you some breaking news that I found just before starting the live stream. Obviously, we had the CME gap, and I said, close the gap. On Twitter, I was saying, close the gap, and it closed in like a few minutes' time. So now the gap is closed. But did you guys know that Jim Cramer said it might be good snap back soon, referring to the stock market? Yeah, the last time he said that wasn't really too great. You guys know that the super trend is flipped bearish. You guys know all of that. You guys know that we had 60,000 subscribers. Hold on, maybe it's my bookmarks. Give me a second. Let's go into the bookmarks. This is my second stream of the day, guys. And it is 1 a.m. and I'm quite tired, so I do apologize as always. But we need to bring these streams to you regardless of the situation. We need to update you. That's it. That's all we are obliged to do. Rand says, this feels like Max Payne. And honestly, it does feel like Max Payne. It quite literally feels like Max Payne. But we need to understand that when you are transitioning from bull to bear markets, the period of which you feel Max Payne can be a very elongated time. And I think the best representation to show or illustrate what I'm saying is by going to the Fear and Greed Index. You can go to the Fear and Greed Index. Hold on. I think my microphone just died. It's back. Test. Give it a moment, guys and girls. I think you can still hear me. It's probably not going to be as clear as before, which is a shame, but you should still be able to hear me. Let me know if you can't. I think you should. Please let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me still as clear. It's probably not going to be as great as the audio quality was just a minute ago, but sadly the microphone that I'm wearing, unfortunately, is dead. It looks like. All right, so let me know in the chat if we're good. When we go to the Fear and Greed Index, currently we're at extreme fear. Yesterday we were at like blood red extreme fear. It was 10. And then last week was also fear. Last month was fear. When we go to the max time frame, so the max time frame available, and you go into this periods of where we were at the 10s, the 15s, the 13s, the last time we were really here for the brief moment was in February of 2025. So we can go to February of 2025. The issue with February 2025 is that was not bear market transitioning periods. Okay, so this was the point where you were seeing the massive dumpage. Obviously from February until March, everybody was fearful, and then eventually you came to the bottom, right? But the difference between this double top, then drop, right? And then this double top and drop in max fear is that this is a post-halving year. So post-halving year Q4, if we go to post-halving year Q4, we go to post-halving year, which is 2021. Look here, from June all the way until, so this was May, so from May 2021 all the way until July of 2021, that was this section, wasn't it? So May 2021. Now we want to go later. Yeah, you had the 2nd of November, that was the exact peak. All right, so from the peak in November, December was always quite fearful, and then January became even more fearful, and then you just sort of consolidated in fear for a few months, right? So you can see we've been quite volatile. We went to extreme euphoria, extreme fear, extreme euphoria, extreme fear, extreme euphoria, extreme fear. But what happens is in that transition from bull market, this was the peak, into bear market is that you're just really consolidating in fear and you're not really going to extreme euphoria. So if we take a look at that, This is basically this whole period. And then here you start going into euphoria again. So that's what I just wanted to highlight. I know it feels like max pain, but in that transitory period, you can feel fear for a much longer amount of time. Okay, you guys can hear me loud and clear. That's cool. Carl says, smash the like button. Carl, wishing you a very safe flight, my friend. We stream sniped your new video. We watched the video that you posted with Da Vinci and Chris, and I was quite shocked that Da Vinci said, every opportunity that you see, you should be selling. Pretty insane. Can't lie. That's Da Vinci coming from the guy that bought Bitcoin at $1. But I do agree with Carl. Make sure to smash that like button. I think it's going to be awesome. And guys, if you also want to be shorting at the levels that I mentioned, I will be shorting Bitcoin, because I still believe, because of that daily crossover that we spoke about in the beginning of the stream, I think we're going to see that bounce. So if you're looking to be shorting, these are the levels that I'm going to be shorting Bitcoin at the moment. And if you want to get a $10 to $100 coupon for free, essentially, you can go to the first link in the description down below, bind your phone number and email address to your account, and then you'll be eligible to get a coupon between $10 to $100 that you can put into your trading. And all the profits you make, you'll be able to retain that for yourself. If you have any questions, by the way, you can ask away your questions. And I'll probably continue on for like another 10-ish minutes. We'll go over your questions. I'll scan the market for some breaking news. Maybe we can do some TA for your altcoins and then end it off in 10 minutes. So this is your time to ask away any questions you may have. Okay, Benjamin Cohen posted, I was watching his update just before going live. So Ben says, well, I think Bitcoin will go to the 200-week SMA, which, whoa, okay. Well, wait, hold on. Well, I think that Bitcoin will go to the 200-week SMA in 2026. 2026. Yes, wait, hold on. 60 to 70K. I don't know if... what does he mean by that? So he's saying that we're going to get that retest. I think the retest is going to happen. That's what we spoke about. Okay, so he thinks the bottom will be at 60 to 70K. Okay, that's just a grammatical issue. There's a high probability we'll have a bounce back to the 200-day SMA before going that low. Agreed. Yes, that's what I think will happen. So I'm shorting there. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to be opening shorts there. So prepare. I agree with Ben. You know, if you don't believe me, then Ben said it. Ben is currently the best analyst that there is. We have the same expectation. And we predicted this drop, by the way, with Ben just a few days back on this channel. But no other real breaking news, I must say. I mean, since the Moonshow Daily Crypto live stream, obviously. You know, it's quite interesting. When Bitcoin dumps, my entire morale just goes into the bin. It's quite crazy. It's so sad that our emotions are attached to Bitcoin price movements. It's a very sad thing. And I don't know if you guys have the same issue, but when Bitcoin is down, like just during the day, I don't feel as good. You know what I mean? It's quite annoying. I need to find a way to detach. We can check the S&P 500 and see the damage on the S&P actually. That would be a nice thing to check out. So obviously the S&P is also down today. It is down only about a percentage point, nothing too insane. Bitcoin is getting hit harder than the S&P, much harder. On the daily time frame, we marked a double top. We're currently on the neckline. If you lose this neckline, then yeah, you know, you're going to go to lower levels. And that wouldn't be good for Bitcoin. Gold is down 1%. I'm assuming there's no bearish divergence. Okay, that's okay. And the dollar is up about 28 basis points today. Those are the traditional markets. Nikhil says, I know CK, you did sell your BNB, but in the long term, do you think BNB will hit an all-time high in 2027? In 2027, I think by that time, yes, we should be able to hit a new all-time high. I do believe so. When will the S&P and Bitcoin decouple? I think there is a long time until that happens, maybe another 2 cycles. I bought for 2030, so I don't give a damn, says God not dog. Interesting. Yeah, for Bitcoin, obviously, if you have a longer time frame approach, a longer time horizon, then you're good. How many days in the bear market? Just check last few cycles. That's a good question. I'm actually curious to know. How many days? Okay, that's a very good question. I'm curious myself. Let's check. All right, so if we consider, so we're in November, right? So this was, let's assume that this dump we're seeing currently is the dump we got right here. All right, so let's assume we're on this candle. Let's assume we're here. That dump is the dump we're seeing now. Let's just say that to be the assumption. So from that point until we started kicking off back into euphoria, that was 686 days. Yeah, maybe we don't check that. But how long was it until the bottom? The bottom was about 350 days, so a year. Yeah, let's not talk about that. I don't think we should bring that up now. No need to depress ourselves even more. No point. Can you tell us what's your plan going forward with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins, says Musa. Okay, so here's the plan. The plan is with Bitcoin, I'm in a comfortable place with my Bitcoin holdings that if it does drop any more, I'm still going to be comfortable with how much money I have in Bitcoin. And that's because I'm not delusionally and irresponsibly long. I have an amount, which is a very significant amount of my net worth, but even if Bitcoin was to fall another 30%, I'm at a place where I have enough passive income that I can add in DC into Bitcoin, and that's what I'm going to do. When it comes to Ethereum, I sold some Ethereum at 3.4, and the remainder amount of Ethereum I have is also an amount that I'm comfortable to hold. With Ethereum, though, I'm not going to do dollar cost averaging like I will be doing for Bitcoin. That's the difference. When it comes to altcoins, yeah, for altcoins, I'm not selling the altcoins I have. I'm still bullish on things like Chainlink and whatnot, but I'm just keeping what I own, and I'm going to keep it until when we see altcoin season. And that may be in a long time, but I'm going to keep on to them. And really, I just want to look at ways where I can start making income outside of crypto also. So most likely I'm going to be investing some capital into real estate. That's the plan. Yeah, but that's the plan for my personal portfolio at the moment. Carl says, gap closed, let's pump. Well, Carl, if you missed out, I think we're going to see a move towards the death cross between, on the daily time frame. So just to remind Carl, let me share the screen again. There's a death cross, okay, Carl? So there's a death cross on the daily time frame between the 50 and 200 moving average. Historically, the death cross does mark the bottom. Only it doesn't mark the bottom when you're transitioning from a bull market to a bear market. But regardless of if you're in a transitory period or if you're just in a part in the cycle where you're in a consolidation and you just get a bounce, right? Every single time Bitcoin does get up to the point of crossover, test the 200 moving average, and then see a capitulation downwards. Now, the time it takes for Bitcoin to bounce to the 200 moving average can vary. It can take 40 days all the way to 70 days. So over the next 2 months, I would say is a good time horizon for Bitcoin to make its move to the 200 moving average. And that is when my short positions will likely get activated. It can be a lot sooner, but I wouldn't say it would be later. I would say it would be sooner rather than later. And that's the current approach I have on Bitcoin. But that doesn't mean, by the way, that we're going to start pumping today. It can take some time. And we can even potentially go a little bit lower before we go up. And I can do a little bit of Fibonacci retracement, actually, to see what would be a nice price? You know what, Carl? The gap is closed, and I think we mentioned this on the Moon Show channel. But the golden pocket, which is where the price is trading at, comes exactly where the CME gap is. So you know what? I think a bounce now would make a bit of sense. It would make a lot of sense. The golden pocket on the Fibonacci is one of the strongest levels of support you can ever find on an asset. And that's where we are. And you can see that the 0.5 held as very good support until eventually you broke it. And even the 0.382 was the point you retested towards, and following a rejection from that retest, you fell. So naturally, if we were to go by the laws of Fibonacci, this golden pocket would be a nice place for a reversal. And we still do, by the way, have that bullish divergence on the 1 hourly time frame. It's just that I'm a little bit too scared to open a long position, but Carl, I know you did. But yeah, a reversal up would make sense in the short term. That's what I made the video about, actually, 2-3 hours ago. Somebody says, I'm buying Solana like a crazy bastard. Well, for Solana, I think the lows will be in at about $120 to $115. I think there's still a little bit more time to go for Solana. How much does Carl owe CK? Currently, he owes me about $25,000, but we agreed to donate that to charity. So I'm just trying to think of a charity to donate that to. What are your favorite economics trading books? Well, I'm a CMT. Well, I'm in the process of becoming a CMT. It's like a CFA for technical analysts, and I do quite like the textbooks of the CMT, Chartered Market Technician. And I think for trading specifically, those textbooks are the best that you can read. And then there's a few more. I mean, there's a bunch, actually. It's just my head is not really... I'm tired, dude. It's 1 a.m. But let me come up with a list, and I can share that to you maybe in another stream. What car did I buy? I didn't buy the car yet, but I'm planning on getting a Ferrari 296. But if the market drops more and more and more, I don't know. Let's see, dude. Paul Weiser says, I am a good charity. Lol. How many days do you think it will take before we see the death cross bounce? Well, I told you, it can take between 40 to 70 days. All right, guys, I think I'm going to end it off here. So let's see what happens. The market is officially closed. So the stock market just closed right now. So I wouldn't be expecting anything too crazy happening from now until Dubai morning. Well, no, the stock market is still open. Why is it still open? It closed in 5 minutes. I'm going to end it off here. And then tomorrow morning when I wake up, obviously we'll do another update. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure you've destroyed the like button. With that said, take care, and I'll see you all on the next stream/video.